So, welcome to the Enriched Living podcast. I'm really, really excited today to have Nick James on from Kast Architects. And yeah, it's going to be a really exciting conversation. And thanks, Nick, for coming along.
Delighted to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
And yeah, just really excited to explore a little bit more about Kast and what you do and your role within it, and also to explore throughout the podcast, what makes up a great culture, an organization that's, doing good and just pushing the boundaries a little bit of what our traditional ways of being in work are and how that kind of links in with how we're living and just exploring that. But just so people know a little bit more about you and about Kast, could you tell us a little bit about the story of how you got into doing the work that you're doing currently and the kind of the whys of Kast as well?
Okay, yeah, sure. So Kast was founded in 2014, towards the end of 2014. So we're approaching our 10th birthday, which we're very pleased about. And it was a bit of a mistake. No, not a mistake. It wasn't intentional. It happened. Circumstances in life, sometimes get thrown at you, and you just have to adapt and move with them. And in my situation, my wife was diagnosed with cancer, and we took a lot of time to process that, but also just to think about what's right for us and our lives and our two young boys at the time. The Trillis Hospital in Cornwall was absolutely fantastic. They dealt with the diagnosis immediately, and a year later, Claire was absolutely fine, got the all clear. But it was a big reality check about us as a family, as a couple, as individuals, and about trying to live each day and make the most of each day. And also just you're really focusing back in on family and making sure that we had time for each other, for our young boys, and just to ensure that we weren't doing what we had been doing for years, which was just working, and then you get home, you're shattered, you don't have time for anything else, you have a bit of food, maybe you read a story to the boys, they go to bed, you go to bed, wake up the next day, repeat. And so setting up the business wasn't necessarily the most sensible thing to do, because that kind of brings with it all sorts of other stresses and strains. But for me, it was about creating a way in which I could work around family, and not the other way around. So it was very much about making sure that family and friends were prioritized, and the work didn't come a second, because it's always important, but it was finding ways in which I could manage my time a bit better. And so the Kast was born, and I thought initially we would just be doing some smaller projects, as you expect as a new architectural practice, loft conversion, small side return extension, that kind of thing. But as luck would have it, we landed some pretty significant jobs early on, and I was able to bring on a colleague of mine who I'd worked with before. He joined very quickly, and we just went with it and went with the flow. He was very keen to again reassess how we work and how we operate day to day. And he was due to get married, anticipating having a young family as well. And so we kind of tried to create a culture that allowed that to happen, and that we could work around it. He was also a keen surfer, so he wanted to make sure that he could go surfing if the weather was good, if the conditions were right. So that helped to kind of focus us on how we worked and how we worked our day. So we had some lovely projects to start out with, but at the core of that was, still very much an approach to architecture that was about creating the most energy efficient and low embodied carbon buildings that we possibly could. That's not always easy, and that's not the norm in terms of construction, but it's improving a huge amount, and it's getting there. So, that was about doing work that we enjoyed and that we felt was right for us and that we could add value to. So our first project was a house on the cliffs on near Downderry and near Looe. Second project was for 9 houses on the north coast of Cornwall, and the third project was a primary school up in Leicestershire. So it was, it kind of, we grew very quickly, but very fortunate and very happy that we got those projects, and it gave us that starting point to really push forward. At the same time, just making sure that we were spending time with our loved ones.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Straight in there with the personal story from you, and it, when those things happen, I guess it can be quite a bit of a shift that has to happen, personally. That
it was
goes on.
A huge kick up the backside. It was a huge kind of reality check of, oh my God, I almost lost her. My boys almost lost their mother, and okay, so what does that mean for us moving forward? And so mentally, there's been a shift. I'm still a very glass half empty kind of person, but it's made me appreciate things in life a lot more, and made me refocus a lot more.
Amazing. And when you said you had your first colleague on, what was it in your ethos that kind of attracted them to come and work with you and made you feel kind of confident that he was the right person initially to kind of start these interesting projects with you?
Well, I was very fortunate in that we'd spent about 3 years working together at a previous practice. So I knew him, he knew me. His work ethic second to none. He knew the sort of work that we wanted to do, and so it was just a natural transition. Just really glad that he did come, because it can be a lonely place, being a sole practitioner, and I did have my concerns about that, but winning those early jobs just meant that only lasted a few weeks, and then we were able to push on and become, we're now a practice of 8. We could very easily be bigger, but we're being very careful and cautious about the work that we do. Doing things that are right for us, things that are where we genuinely feel we can add value for our clients. And if a project comes along and it perhaps doesn't fit with our approach, our ethos, or if it doesn't fit with our skill sets, we'll say to the client, look, there may be a better person out there for you and for this project, and we'll try and put them in touch with the right people. There's some great architects out there, and it's not all about take and doing as much work as possible. It's about doing the right work.
Yeah, amazing. I really, when we first met at the Chamber of Commerce, Planet C, I really got that from your panel conversation, and speaking quite candidly about it and saying, look, there's a kind of a floodgate here of what we really want to work with and how we want to collaborate. When you think about your kind of journey and in kind of getting to that, what were the kind of characteristics that kind of came through when you went through the new inception of going, okay, this is how I want to work? And
Well, I
and
guess
this
we've,
is, where I want to go.
yeah, well, we worked for a few practices before the previous one for about 10 years and learnt a hell of a lot from them as a practice, from the, principal architects and directors there. There was a lot of knowledge that came from that, and it kind of it seeps in. You're not kind of gathering it necessarily, but it's there, and you think, okay, that's how I want to operate, or there's an area where I may do things a little bit differently. It's not saying that one's right or what's wrong. It's just what's the most appropriate route for us as a practice of two at the time, rather than the practice of 40 odd that they were. So
Yeah.
some things are transferable and some things aren't.
Hmm. No, I get that. So is that kind of like pulling forward of like what's currently working now and the kind of stuff that I'm resonating with that I kind of want to take forward. And I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs and who set up their own businesses, and they're kind of working for a business, and then they realize, oh, maybe most of the stuff or the way that I'm working or where my creativity and innovation can come from is not being nurtured here. And that, I'm not saying
And
that's what
yeah,
happened with you,
mm,
but yeah, what was that kind of shift?
I think I learned a lot from that practice. It was always appreciated there, and I think I was very grateful for the time that I had there. I just felt, I guess, obviously, starting from scratch, doing something different because of needs and because of the family. I just felt
Hmm.
that you just had to take a slightly different tack. And I was a recent director of that previous practice, and it was a big company. And I felt, look, my priorities are with my wife and my kids. They're not with
Hmm.
you and the 30 odd people there. And so I
Hmm.
just had to be honest about that and what I could do and what I couldn't. And so then you shift and say, well, what's right for this new practice and how we want to be. Um, and at the beginning it was, let's just take it one step at a time and one week, month, year at a time. And now it's coming up to 10 years. You think, okay, we're doing okay now. So let's just have a bit more focus and how we move forward and how we deliver great buildings, beautiful buildings, sustainable buildings, and keep our growing workforce happy in what they do.
Amazing. It's so great to hear, and I really love the humility that you've got around saying we're 10 years on now, and we're kind of now feeling like we're in a space where we are. And I totally, relate as a sole trader and doing freelance work. And you never really think it's going to take, some people might not think it's going to take that long, and in the first year or 2 years, and it's emerging qualities of oh, this really worked and this didn't work, and really kind of growing into your new practice. I guess it's like having a child, isn't it, sometimes, where they go through their first illnesses and then all that kind of stuff, and then they start to walk and fall and get back up. And I'm curious about, as you went through, when as you started to come through to, and now you're a B Corp, what kind of shifted you around the purpose of Kast? Is it kind of changed over that 10 years? And yeah.
It's has it changed? It's become more focused. I think. To begin with, we want to do sustainable buildings, low operational energy, low embodied carbon. So building out of timber rather than steel and concrete, and making sure it's as energy efficient as possible. Um,
Hmm.
and wouldn't that be nice? And so that was kind of what we were aiming for. And so it's very much
Yeah.
about the sort of delivery of those projects and making sure they were as good as they could be. Um, then, in 2020, obviously the pandemic hit, and we were, approaching 6 years old, and there was a bit of a sense for a few months there that, oh shit, it's everything that we've built up over the last 6 months is now for nothing, because where's this leading us to, and are we going to be in business in a few months' time? Because you could see those projects dropping off, see those projects, those clients kind of going on pause, the projects on site having to stop. And there was a lot of head scratching and navel gazing and thinking about, okay, well, what do we do now? And when I got out of that depressive slump, I kind of looked again and think, okay, well, we can either accept that or we can build back stronger. And so, we felt, I think there were 5 or 6 of us in the practice at the time, and we were keeping in touch on conversations like this and Zoom calls and figuring our way around Teams and other video conferencing methods, and just keeping in touch and talking honestly and candidly about, well, what is it that we want? If we come out of this in 6 months' time, in 9 months' time, what do we want to be? And that's when I started exploring B Corp, because I thought, well, we've got a nice practice. We're in a nice office. We've got a good bunch of people. We're doing some lovely work, but it's all a little bit vague, and I think it just needed a little bit more structure to that, and also a little bit of a stick, not to beat ourselves up with, but just to say, come on, there are opportunities to be better than we are now. We think we're doing good things, so let's assess that. And if that assessment comes back and says, yeah, well, you're doing okay, then let's try and get that a little bit better. And researching into B Corp around about 2020, that it started to resonate with me, and I started to think, okay, yeah, that's something I can get on board with, and something that will really help us as a business in where we want to be and how we want to progress, and the sort of people that we want to be, and the sort of business that we want to promote. So it was, that was a real eye-opener for me, and it didn't happen immediately. I was looking at it for quite some time, and we only certified in March 2022. So it was about an 18-month process of researching, looking into it, and then saying, okay, let's do this, and then getting certified. But what I really liked about it was them saying, nobody's expecting you to be perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect business. But we can try and be a little bit better each day. What are the little things that we can do that just kind of slot into our way of working, that improve us, that ensure that we're doing things that are better for the planet, for people, and yes, still making a profit, because otherwise we wouldn't be in business, but doing that in a way that we felt comfortable with. And so that's been really, really helpful. And it's also been helpful that in Cornwall there's this little collection, quite a large collection of like-minded businesses. Some are architects, others are graphic designers, some make coffee, some sell wine. So in the hospitality business, there's a whole mix, but everyone's really willing to share and to say, well, this is how we do business. It's not about keeping it to themselves, because who does that benefit other than yourself? It's about making sure that we are all doing better business, and if we can share those ideas with other people, then great. In the last practice I was working at, the director there did this thing called Carbon Confessions, and it was saying, well, we set out to do this thing on this particular building, and it kind of worked, but this is where it fell down. So I'm telling the next set of people that this is what you need to look out for, because it didn't quite work as well as we hoped it would. Just confessing those things that, say, well, okay, guys, build on that, make it better the next time. And so, that's taken that ethos in terms of sharing knowledge, and what little we have, and just saying, okay, this is how we do it, and this might help you as a business or as an architect or as a student or whatever, to progress and be that little bit better.
Amazing. And for people who don't know a lot about kind of B Corps, in a nutshell, if you were to kind of describe what they are and how they might operate differently to businesses that are just for profit, or even if they're not a B Corp, what are some defining factors?
I guess that there's some. Okay, right. I'm going to have the B Corp police on me, making sure I'm doing this correctly. No, it's not a cult. The B Corp, it is about, it's recognizing that businesses are there to make a profit. Okay, you make a profit, that means that you're still in business next year, and that's not a dirty word. That's okay. If it's profit over everything else, then you start to question your morals. But if it's profit in line with making sure that you're looking after the people that work with you, your co-workers, your consultants that join you on projects, working with the clients, working with the community, making sure that you're working in a way that values their input. It's also about, in our industry, about building more sustainably and making sure that we're not trying to reduce our carbon footprint. We're not building out of concrete and steel, where we're trying to find alternatives, more natural alternatives, renewable alternatives. But it is very much about how you work and how you are with other people. And I think that was the bit that we weren't focusing on when we set up. We just thought, well, we'll try and be nice to people, but here it gives us a little bit more of a framework, and that was really helpful. And it's just helping to inform us each day about how we can improve.
Yeah, amazing. And I think one of those things is there's a lot of stuff going, like you said, there's a lot of stuff that goes on the external of businesses and the move towards more sustainability. But having those realizations about the internal workings of everything is kind of supporting you and informing you to move forward in a different way, I guess, from what you've said. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's helping us to avoid drift. You get to business say, well, we've been going for 10 years, so let's just keep on doing what we've been doing. Obviously the formula works, so let's just run with that. And you can fall into that trap of just drifting and just assuming that everything's going to be the same. But I think there's a need, just that continual professional development, that CPD, if you like. How can we be better architects? How can I be a better employer? How can we engage better with our clients, with the communities that we work in? It's just wanting to improve that little bit each day, each year. And what's nice about B Corp is it's not about getting a badge and a stamp and saying, well, that's it, you're a B Corp forever. It's okay, you've got to retake this exam every 3 years, and ours is next year, and that's scary. But also each year you have to produce your annual impact reports and just say, well, what have we been doing over this last year, and what are we going to be doing this coming year? And that's really useful. It's almost like a mini business plan, but in terms for ours, it's okay. What have we been doing? Well, working with community. We're working with a community interest company that grows vegetables in a no-dig way outside Porthtowan and delivers veg boxes to people in the village and the wider area. And they need a new building to gather in, to do demonstrations for local people, to do cookery classes, also somewhere out of the rain, because it hasn't been great weather this last few months, and just serve as a base for them. So we're doing work on that project, at a reduced rate, because they're a lovely bunch of people. It's close to us. It chimes with everything that we like and we're trying to do. and it's going to be a beautiful, simple building that serves a very real purpose and need. Um, Also do some work with local charity called BF Adventure, who
Oh yeah.
so they work with children who perhaps are struggling in their home life or school life, finding it difficult to engage at school, and so they do a lot of kind of outdoor adventure work, either one to one or in small groups, building their confidence, building their ability to communicate and to be around others and just to and enjoy being them again, and then coming back
Yeah.
into school life and family life. So we're
Yeah.
helping them organise their campus and provide better accommodation on site and staff accommodation. So it's nice to be able to do those projects. And also there's the elephant in the room in Cornwall of second homes, and
Yeah.
wealthy people coming down here and saying, well, we want to build a lovely house with a view of the coast, and that's not going to go away. And if we don't do it, the next architect on their Google search will do it. So if we do it, we'll do it better. We'll do it more sustainably. We'll make sure that they're engaged in that process and engaged in their locality and their community, and try and help them to create a low carbon sustainable building that will be there for many, many years. It's not just a glory trophy project. It's had a bit more meaning. So it's balancing the two and recognising we're going to make more profit from one than the other, but then one can help to feed the other and allow us to do more of the community work. So without getting all Robin Hood about it, it's it kind of works. That model kind of works for us, and it gets a nice balance of work in the office as well.
I love that, and I think it's really important. I think a lot of different companies might have foundations and things like that, but their corporate clients then support them to do the other work where other people aren't in a current level of prosperity that they can afford the level of skill, experience, knowledge that you may offer. And it's part of the kind of, like you say, the ecosystem of products and services that you provide, and just the way that you meet people's needs. Is that thing of being able to meet meaningful needs in some way, where you can within the work that you do, I guess.
Yeah, and also there's a huge amount of learning from the kind of the larger projects that we do, and for the for those wealthier clients, there's a lot of learning from how those buildings go together, how they are more efficient, more airtight, better insulated, avoiding thermal bridges, etc., etc. Use that knowledge. The same technology and the same details will go into those projects for local communities, so they're not having to spend loads on energy bills and diverting funds away from the more meaningful work that they do. I mean, it's a balance. Whether it's the right balance at the moment, I don't know, but that's part of that. We're continually questioning that and just saying, is this right? Can we do things differently? Can we do things better? So it's working for us at the moment.
So when you kind of almost like behind the scenes of that, kind of when you think about kind of the processes and the practices, around how you stay self-aware in how you are as a business, as people, how are you interacting with clients and each other? What has been some things, because there's a couple of things that you spoke about at the Planet C conference that I was like, yes, this feels great, and really links into this like life working with with work rather than a work-life balance. Work is within our life, and it's a part of it. It's not the first thing, and then life is the second thing, as it were. What are some kind of processes or ways that you go about doing your work with people and in the in the business that kind of keep that resilience and self-awareness alive?
I've got a great bunch of people in the office, and they all bring kind of their own very different skills. I've worked at places, a number of years ago now, where there was also, it seemed like the recruitment strategy was to bring in people that were carbon copies of people who were already there. And that just didn't seem right to me. So I think it's fair to say that everyone in the office is very, very different and brings their own unique skills, whether that's at a technical level, whether that's at an environmental level, a social level, and the different levels in terms of whether they're fully qualified architects, part 2, part 1, director. Everyone has a voice, and when you're in an office of just 8 people, we've got an open plan office, and on the whole, we don't have headphones in. We're aware. We listen to the same music. Don't always like the same music, but it's on in the background, and then we kind of listen in on other people's conversations, not in a voyeuristic way, but in a kind of way that you're aware of what's going on and on another project that maybe you're not directly involved in. And so you know that, okay, there's a detail there that's a little bit tricky. Oh, right, that reminds you of something I did on the other project. Maybe that will help. Or, we've got a bit of a planning issue here. Can anybody shed some light on what we might do to resolve this? So there's there's an openness, and also for younger members of staff, there's people who have been with us for less time. It's you're learning very quickly. You're seeing, you're hearing what's going on. It's not about this is my project and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be the name that's designed it at the end. It's a Kast project, and I guess that goes back to it's not Nicholas James Architects, because I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable with that. It's Kast. And don't ask me why it's Kast. And it comes from us as a business, as a group of people, as a group of designers, rather than one individual person with their name over the door saying it's mine. And I think that collective input into projects is really useful, because we've got people who have got passive house certification, we've got people who've got a lot of technical knowledge from working on site, and we've got people who have just been at the different practices, and it can help to inform what we do and say, well, at such and such practice, we did it this way. Maybe that'll help us. So listening to people, getting everyone's voice is really important, and that helps us to kind of move forward in a more positive way. Also feels everyone feels that they have a voice, I hope, and there's a collective drive forward for the business.
Were there any particular stories that spring to you where you think, oh, this, these things have happened and it's really supported to kind of shape or facilitate an emergence of a new way of doing things?
I don't know if there's one specifically. There's certainly an approach. We've learned how to say no, and that's really difficult in business, because you're thinking the bank manager or accountants in the background going, come on, say yes to that project. Come on, you could do it with the cash flow. But saying no at the right time is important, because whether it's as I said earlier, is it right for you? Is it as a business? Does the client share the same ethos? So, for example, for a number of years, we had 4 projects up in the Midlands, repeat projects for a big contractor and a local authority client. And I mean, it was great in terms of you're working on £5 million school projects as a small practice, because that gave us some credibility. We lied through our teeth to get the first project, but that's another story. But we then the first project went really well. It was beautiful project. We won it through an invited competition, and it was timber frame, recycled newspaper insulation. It just ticked so many boxes for us. Education, working with the local authority, it was wonderful. Second project, okay, we like that, but now the spreadsheet's saying that instead of a glue laminated timber frame, it's going to be steel, and we fought that hard. But we were just employed by the contractor, so we had to do what they wanted us to do, and through the project, steel frame, huge embodied carbon, and also loads of issues in terms of acoustics and fire and detailing that are very simplified in timber, but much more complicated in steel. And so we kind of question, okay, is this the sort of work that we want to be doing? Just churning out a similar design and building it in a way that's not right for the planet and not right for us. A third project came along, and we thought, okay, now's our chance to get it back into timber. And it almost got there, and at the last minute, bang, it changed to steel. And that was really frustrating, and so it kind of made us a bit more bloody-minded about how we approached the fourth project that we were asked to do with them. We said, and it was around about the same time as Greta Thunberg and the school strikes, and much greater public awareness of sustainability filtering through to school children. And so we went to that interview where we're invited to say, do you want to do this fourth project? You're going to be up against other practices. And we said, quite frankly, we don't want to do it if you're going to do what you did on the last two and turn it to steel. And we showed them loads of images of children from that local authority striking outside of that county hall building that we were sitting in at the time, saying, these are your clients. These, you're not our client. These school children who are going to be moving into this school, they're your clients. We need to listen to them, because if we keep on doing the same old crap, churning out the same old buildings in the same old, lowest common denominator way, how are we going to tell these children that it was in their best interests when their planet is on fire? So we said, we're not going to do your building if you're going to do the same old crap, and you know in your heart that you can't be doing it and you shouldn't be doing it. And so we will only do it if it's timber. And we showed them a method of construction, cross-laminated timber, that we've used before, that was a much better way of building. And at the end of the interview, I walked out with Adam and I said, I think I've blown that. I think I went a bit too hard on that, on the guilt trip. But I think it was one of those instances where we were willing to let go of that big project for us, on principle, because we felt it was the right thing to do. And halfway back down the M5, we got a phone call from the contractor who employs us. And the first thing he said was, well, you managed to piss off a lot of people in that meeting, didn't you? I was like, oh. So I said, yeah, okay, sorry about that. He said, for some reason they want you to do the job. I was like, really? They said, yeah. And are they going to commit to a timber frame building and not steel? They said, yeah, you've convinced them. And it was like, that was just a real moment for us, that this small little practice from Truro could influence a multi-billion-pound contractor and local authority up in the Midlands, and persuade them to do things and think about things a little bit differently. And that was a huge win. So delighted with that, and it's given us some confidence moving forward. We're not always like that in interviews now. We're a bit more subtle, but in that instance, I think it was justified.
Yeah, amazing. And I think it's so funny when we get to those points of this, I really feel that this is the right way. And I think I notice this in the work that I do, and thinking about as in that story, that we might have an understanding of, we need to do all these things, but how does that look in practice? And you having those, being able to share the evidence and the meaning of that is a wonderful quality that, within Kast, if people are doing that, then that really kind of sets a new scene of people change in their mindsets and things not by learning lots of different principles. They learn it by how it's done in practice. And are there any other things that you think that have really supported the well-being and the resilience of the internal goings on of the 8 of you that are working to kind of towards these goals?
Yeah. So about 18 months ago, we decided to move to a 9-day fortnight. So there's been a lot of talk in business lately about 4-day weeks. And we just felt we couldn't quite stretch to that. A lot of our projects are on sites. They work 5 days and they need instant responses to queries. So we're working 9 days out of 10. So everyone's got every other Friday off, and that just gives us the right balance. We do a little bit extra each day, but at the end of the fortnight, people are in credit and they've got a 3-day weekend. And I think that's it. It's working. We had a gut feeling that it would be okay. It does mean I'm a little bit more militant about, okay, well, if you say you're going to be in at 9 o'clock, be in at 9 o'clock ready to work. If you're leaving at 6, you leave at 6. But what it does mean is that you're getting that Friday off, and that is, it means your weekends are free with family, friends, whatever. You've got a spare day to do your life admin crap, all the stuff that we keep on meaning to do, but we don't want it to interfere with our weekends. So you've got that day to do it, or you've got a longer weekend to travel and see friends up country, and that's working really well. We call it a down day, so you're not in the office. If there's an urgent inquiry from site, we do expect it to be at the end of the phone, but that's it pretty much. And that's working really well. There's been no downturn in productivity. People are getting their work done in that time that they need to. I mean, linked to that, we've got a fairly strict no overtime policy. If we need to be working overtime, then I've got it wrong in terms of our programming or our fee proposal or whatever, and that's on my head. We need to make sure that if you go home, you get your rest, you have your dinner, go to sleep, come back in, refresh the next day. I've again, going back many years, worked in other practices where there was always an expectation to be working past 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever, and that's gladly that's no longer the case.
Amazing. And I think how you noticed it kind of shift what's going on as well. You talked a little bit about it then. People are finding that they're still able to get their work done, that they have that downtime to get the shadmin all sorted, as it were. What have you noticed that goes on when you're in work then, and the productivity hasn't been kind of affected? What are you noticing about your colleagues?
I don't know. It may be that that extra day off, you're just a little bit more refreshed. You're less exhausted the following week. Is a Saturday and Sunday enough to refresh you for another 5 days of work? So that might be the case. I think it's, I don't think we certainly don't take it for granted. Initially we said it would be a trial, but when you dangle that carrot in front of somebody, you can't take it away. So we're kind of stuck with it. No, but it works well, and I think it's I'm glad we do it, and it's something that's, when we are recruiting, it's it means that people are really interested in wanting to work with us, as well as the sort of work that we do. It's how we work, and I think it's perhaps taken me a little while to figure that out completely, and we're still figuring it out. But it's not just about doing beautiful, sustainable buildings. It's about the process of doing that and the team that you're working with to do that. They're just as important.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about that? kind of
About the
around
process, about the team,
the process of doing the work. Because I think, like you say, we can be focused on the destination of where we're going, but how we're going about doing what we're doing on that process. Like what comes through.
oh, crikey. Well, that could be a very broad question. The process, I think there's a lot of conversations with the client early on, and it's just understanding where they're coming from and what it is that they want. Um,
Mm.
Fortunately, many of them are coming to us now because of our track record and what we've done, and how we've done it, and they want to, and also a growing awareness of having to do things a little bit differently. So wanting a low energy home. I think the spike in utility bills over the last couple of years has really focused people's attentions on energy efficiency, and so that's great, because it's something we want to do anyway. But here there's even more reason. So we never want to kind of force sustainability down people's throats and just say you will have a straw bale house. We want to say, okay, we're going to work with you to just try and understand what are the barriers to you wanting things done in a certain way, and what are you open to, and some with some clients and some briefs and some developments, you just have to accept we're not going to win every battle. Not that it's a war, but you're not going to get everything in there that you want. But there might be some thing that you can focus on. Say, well, that's a huge win in terms of we've designed it in such a way that we didn't need that steel beam to cantilever out. We've got a timber post there to pick that up instead, and that's great. Or we've got we've managed to detail it in such a way that your airtightness test is much better than passive house standard. Isn't that a huge win? Because that's going to be low energy bills for our clients. So I think we're not trying to do everything on every project. We recognise that every client is different, every brief is different, every site is different, and so therefore it's about doing something that's appropriate and applicable to that particular set of circumstances. And then every now and again you get this golden project that comes along. For example, there's one client that we're working with at the moment. They do want to build out a straw. Great. Straw bale, timber frame. They're looking to eliminate any plastics from the design, eliminate certain types of insulation, because there's a perception that all insulation is good because it's keeping you warm. Well, some insulation are petrochemical based and some are more naturally based. So let's go with the straw and let's avoid the other stuff. So they're making us really question every design decision, every specification decision. They've also had a couple of cedar trees on their land that fell down, that they had the foresight to say, well, let's save those, let's mill those and use that timber as the timber cladding on our new home. So there's a lot of things there where you've got a client that's really pushing us rather than the other way around, and that's really refreshing.
Amazing. And it sounds like pulling in those people and having that inner culture of these are kind of our expectations, but that we're not kind of putting them upon you. It's this sense of we have a high standard and we want to do stuff that's good enough and safe enough for the work that we want to do, and we have a particular flood, as I said earlier on, a kind of ethical floodgate of this is the kind of work that we're kind of wanting to avoid over here, but maybe we could start here and build on what you could do first. When you think about the team and how you process through work that supports you to be creative and innovative, how does that kind of like manifest itself, or how does it appear and how you work together?
Well, I think one of the things, we do have a great team. We've been very, very lucky in the people that we've got, and I think it's fair to say that every single one of them is better than me at certain things. I've got better designers than me, better technical people than me, and I think that's important just to say, if you're trying to be leading a practice and say, well, I've got to be at the top and there's got to be that kind of hierarchy and you're beneath me, that's not going to work, because everyone's got those skills and we recognise them. And my role now is less about delivering buildings and more about facilitating the other people in the practice to deliver the best buildings that we can do. Every now and again I'm allowed to get a colouring pen out and do some scribbles, but it's not as often as I would like, but I think that's going to be part of the next evolution of the practice. We're 8 now, it's a nice comfortable size. We may grow in the future, but let's just not put any time frame on that or any set targets. But if we did grow, then that might mean that there's somebody else that comes in that does more of my role and allows me to get back onto doing some of the design work. The people I work with are going to hate that. But it's good. That I think it's important to recognise that everyone's got those skills, and you want to bring them forward. And there's some individuals who might be very, very well suited to working with community organisations, has that mindset and has that way of communicating that's kind of reassures them and brings them on board. Maybe others who are very good at communicating directly with contractors because they themselves have got a lot of hands-on knowledge and are able to just communicate in a different way that isn't this kind of architect in their ivory tower telling people what to do. It's I think it's important to recognise that everyone's got those skills and that they can apply them to different projects that come in at different times. It's not perfect by any means, because you can't dictate what projects are coming in at any one time. Projects start, they stop, they stall, they disappear, they come back again. That's my job. You try to manage that and make sure we've got the right people in the right place at the right time.
Amazing. So I'm kind of hearing like there's in some of the work that I do, there's a difference between kind of having titles and job descriptions and roles. And it sounds like you guys have this idea of we're really clear on what roles we're really good at, and we're really clear on where we might need support and how you guys make decisions and thinking about that. How do you kind of balance the autonomy in decision making for someone and kind of collective decision making? So like you said, we want to avoid doing the ivory tower thing of I'm making all the decisions on all of the projects that we're doing. How do you balance the autonomy with individuals within the practice and collective decision making?
I guess it's giving people the how much work do you want? How much do you want to go out on your own and push this? But always knowing that there's that safety net of expertise around you. And every one of, and I think myself and David and Adam will be asking questions as much as answering questions. It's important that we're seen to be just asking, because we don't have all the answers either. And it might be that somebody else in the practice they've experienced it, so we'll ask them how they went about it. And I think by having that culture in the office about always asking questions, not trying to just figuring it out yourself, or not being embarrassed, is this a silly question to ask? There's no such thing as a silly question. If you don't know the answer, let's try and figure it out. And I think it's important that open plan, work environment that we have, just helps people to be able to just throw things out there and ask and offer solutions. I think it's really important. Just making sure that people feel comfortable in being able to say, look, I'm not quite sure how to figure this one out. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
And that's that's been ongoing. And sometimes people will join the practice, but I hope that after a few days there, they realise that that's okay. We're not expecting you to be running a project on day one. It's that will come over time. There's adapting to the way that we work, or the software that we use, or the new commute that you've got, or whatever. Just give yourself time to bed in, and then just make the most of that knowledge and expertise that's around you.
Amazing. Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like a way of being able to kind of have a collective sense, a bit of diversity and perspective on how you do your work, rather than just one mind, one piece of work. It becomes a melting pot of meaning, I guess. You got more information you have, the more informed you are about the decisions you make, right?
And we're trying to keep on learning as well, because there's, we have certain answers, but not all of the answers, and there's so many new products coming and different ways of doing things. So we have usually on a Tuesday we'll have a learning lunch, if you like. We'll call it Sustainer Chat, and we just have I'll have a CVD online, or watch a YouTube video, or get somebody in that's has a new product or a new way of doing things. One of us will cook a meal, a vegetarian option. It's so no meats, vegetarian. We'll all sit down together, and we will have a chat, have something to eat, and learn about something. And there's just an hour out of everyone's week. The only downside of that is that it's become super competitive in terms of the food that's cooked. So we need to kind of balance that a little bit. Just say, look, guys, a salad is fine. A salad's fine, but don't worry about that too much. But the important thing is that we're together and we're learning, and so somebody may have gone on a hempcrete course, for example, building out of hemp. So let's learn a little bit about that. Somebody's designing a straw bale building, so let's learn a little bit about that. Somebody's done some passive house training, so let's bring that in so that everyone can learn from that. I think that's important, rather than everyone just going down their own little rabbit holes of learning. It's about that collective knowledge, and somebody will be better at certain things than others, but at least we'll all have a basic understanding.
Amazing. Shared meaning and shared understanding. That sounds like a great place to be. When just on a kind of leadership level, on your own, you said as you've gone through the shifts and changes, you obviously made it in a place of crisis. You're like, Kast is going to come alive, and I've really understand this is more meaningful and more important to me in my life. As you kind of gone through and confronted challenges within kind of leadership, kind of weighing up that idea of isolation and responsibility, what have you kind of found happens to you when challenges are afoot?
I think for me, the last few years, certainly the last year in particular, I've begun to lean on my two other directors a bit more, because I think again, just trying to get back to this is a Kast decision moving forward, whatever that might be in terms of how we design something or how we respond to a particular issue. It's important that there's more than one voice in the room, because I might have my opinion on how to do something, but I may have missed a certain nuance that David or Adam might be able to plug in and say, well, have you thought about it from this angle? So I think it's so leadership. I just chicken out and ask other people. I think it's important. I think which one person has got all the answers. That's you don't. It may be that you've reached a conclusion, but you want to sound out the others just to make sure that do you feel that this is right. But I think it's really important just to recognise that, we've got 8 people in the practice, 8 individuals, 8 very different people, the way that they are, the skills that they have, and therefore, we need to make sure that we're, balancing all of that, and not doing something the Nick James way because he might have his head up his arse in that particular situation. It's important that we've got a more collective, response and a more considered response in how we do things and how we move forward.
And what do you believe that kind of success is around that kind of organizational model, as it were? By sharing and being able to ask better questions. How is that? How reliant is the organization's success on that leadership kind of style?
I don't know if I've ever reflected on that. The success of the practice, how do we measure it? At the end of the year, the accountant gives us one barometer and one way of measuring it. And are you more profitable than last year? Yes, you are. Great. Okay, that's a success. Some practices, it's about, well, how many bums on seats do they have? And it's literally about, it's not who have we got and what individual skills they got. Have we got a bum on a seat to do some work? And for me, that was never really the end goal. The size of the practice is not important. It's about that collective of individuals that work well together as a team with a shared vision. Success. We're still in business after almost 10 years. That's a success. And I think that the main thing is that people are happy and enjoy coming into work, and enjoy the work that they're doing. They're not being forced to do stuff that we've just got to do that because of the cash flow. Say all the work that we've got is work that we want to be doing, and you can look over anybody's shoulder. I want to be working on that project. Oh no, I want to be working on that one or that one. There's no projects in the office that we want to dodge. They all have their different challenges, whether that's the scale of the project, the complexity of the sites, the planning restrictions, etc. Every project's got its own challenges, but they're all interesting, for want of a much better word, in their own right, in terms of what we're able to do for that client and their needs, from a sustainability point of view, and from a learning within the practice point of view as well. We like to see projects from beginning to end if we can, if it's right for us, because you learn so much going through that process, and especially when on site, that you can then apply back to the beginning of the next project. And there's that constant learning loop that's important.
Sounds like you guys have a, part of this leadership style is really having space and time to reflect.
Yeah, I guess every other Friday.
Having your lunches and and being and having this kind of process of saying we're not. It doesn't want to be the relationships that we have within the organisation, the relationships we have, with the circles outside of our organisation with clients and other partners and things like that. Seems less transactional and more transformational, because you're kind of getting to the you're getting the all the juicy bits out of the whole of the project, rather than just saying, oh yeah, we'll come in, we'll do this bit and off you go, and call us if you need us. There's more of a partnership feeling to how all of you kind of work. Would that be right in saying?
I think so. I think it's when we talk to our clients, in those early meetings, when perhaps we haven't been appointed yet, we say that the choice of who you appoint is really important, because especially for our private clients, that they've maybe saved all their life to build their own home, and now they're going to build it in the village they grew up in, and that's really important to them. And they say, well, this has got to be pleasurable experience for you. You're putting your life savings. You're trusting somebody to use your life savings in a well-mannered and meaningful way. So the relationship that you have with your choice of architect is really important, because that's a 2-3+ years relationship. It's not just through the design, through planning, building regs, tender, construction. That's a minimum of 2 years. It's then the ongoing after that, and we're still having conversations with some of our earliest clients. How things are going, how the house is working out. What are they up to? How's life? How's their little boy? Oh, he's a teenager now. Wow, that's amazing. And I think that relationship is strong, and it's important, because when somebody comes to you and says, "Can you design my new home for my family? Here's my life savings. Please don't mess it up." That's a hell of a responsibility, and you know that every line that you draw has got a cost implication, as well as an aesthetic implication, and so it's really important to get that right. And that's a huge honour, that somebody is entrusting you to do that. And so we try and remind ourselves each day that this is we shouldn't be taking this for granted. That's it's really important what we're doing, and we can really mess it up if we're not careful, or we can do something wonderful if we focus on it. And so that relationship with the client, and just telling them early on, really be careful about who you choose. And if you don't feel it's us, then that's fine. You've got to feel right, because on that journey, on that 2-3 year period, there are going to be difficult choices to make and difficult conversations to have, and you've got to make sure that you're able to have them with myself or with somebody else in the office, and see through that and get to the other side and get the end result.
If you were to pull some value out of that, what values do you think you as Kast hold then, that supports you to have those difficult conversations, to build those relationships with clients and people?
You've got to be open and honest, and especially when it comes to the subject of money and how much something's going to cost. Especially recently, construction costs have gone up enormously over the last few years. COVID, war in Ukraine, just energy crisis, Brexit. There's a whole host of. There's been this perfect storm of why prices are, 150 to 180% of what they were, a few years ago, and that's a difficult conversation to have with a client, to say, well, your aspirations might be for this, something quite substantial, but actually what you're able to afford is something smaller and more modest, and it's doing that in a positive way, and not in a saying no every time they ask for something more. So that honesty about budget and what they can afford and what they can't, and what's possible and what's not, and managing those aspirations and expectations, I think is really important. Because that, as I said, you've got a duty of care, you've got a professional duty, you've got an ethical and moral obligation as well to do the right thing for these people, and that honour of being chosen to be their architect. So we try very hard to stay open, honest, and have those difficult conversations, rather than let's just try and ignore that for now. I hope it goes away. It never goes away. It comes back and bites you.
I relate to that in earlier contracts that I've had, where one of my mentors once said, "So did you see it in the beginning?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, maybe we'll meet it at the beginning first, rather than we'll figure that out later on. So I totally get that. So kind of being open and honest. So if just kind of round up the end, I've been really enjoying listening to your journey through Kast and what it's kind of brought out for you. What would you say in regards to kind of work allows you to live an enriched life?
Ooh, that's a good one. I always wanted to be an architect. I don't know why. I don't know whether it was back at school, flicking through those careers books. This is before the internet. Flicking through the book, and it was letter A, so I didn't have to go very far. So, okay, I want to be an architect because I like drawing. I liked a bit of woodwork at school. I'm rubbish at DIY, but I seem to enjoy it at the time putting things together.
Yeah.
And so, I've always wanted to do this work. And I guess now, through Kast, I'm able to do the sort of work that I enjoy doing. It's not about mega structures for us. It's not about huge towers or massive projects. It's about working with people for people, and working with those private clients or the small community organisations, and making a meaningful difference to their life, hopefully in a positive way. And I think that means that I get a lot out of the job. I enjoy what we do, and I can drive around and bore the family and say, we did that one, we're doing a project there, and I went to see that client over there. So that's really great, being able to do the job that you enjoy, and then come home at the end of the day and not have to spend the next half an hour grumbling to Claire or being cross, and the boys wondering why is Dad in the mood. It's when you enjoy your work, it makes your family life easier as well, because you're not having to take that home with you, take that baggage home. And I try very hard to not work on the evenings and weekends. We say we have a no overtime policy. Sometimes as a business owner, you can't always stick to that policy. There are things that you naturally have to do, but there's certainly not an expectation on anybody else to do it. That's my responsibility and something I have to do. But I'm able to minimise that, and that's great. So I'm grateful I have a job that I enjoy. We do the type of work that I enjoy with a lovely team of people, and it means that coming home just is much more enjoyable as well, because you don't have those things hanging over you quite so much.
Amazing. Thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast, and I could talk to you for hours about all of this stuff in your work. So hopefully we can catch a coffee at some point as well. But thanks Nick for coming along, and we'll catch you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks.